picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. And a smile? A genuine smile represents a gallery of infinite possibilities, and it is quite priceless. About 150 years ago, in 1850, in a very remote part of Africa, around the time the Danes were leaving West Africa after the infamous transatlantic slave trade and later the British colonialists, a middle-aged African woman was the local herbs or medicine woman in her village. Her name was Nana. Nana was quite the matriarch, kind-hearted, warm, loving, and although she had several children of her own, she was essentially the mother to all the children in her little village. One evening, she had some visitors. It was a traveling merchant and his wife. They came in with long, serious faces, and she could tell by the shadows cast by the flickering kerosene lantern in the corner of the room that something serious was the matter, and whatever it was had great import. As they narrated the purpose of their visit, the energy in the mudroom they were sitting got heavier and heavier and heavier. When they were finished, she took a deep breath. Nana took a deep breath. She stared briefly at her clasped fingers for about 10 seconds. She sat upright, looked up at her visitor straight in the eyes, and she smiled. This singular act of hope, reassurance, and subsequent acts of compassion and kindness by Nana set into motion a series of events which changed the course of history for her family, her village, and continues to ripple positive effects in her country, the African continent, Europe, the United States, and many parts of the world, even to this day, more than a century after her death. A smile brings cheer to the discouraged, rest to the weary, sunshine to the sad and depressed, and is nature's best antidote for trouble. A genuine smile channels peace and sows love where there is hatred. A smile pardons where there is injury and pain. A smile fosters understanding, forgiveness, consolation. A genuine hearty smile is love manifests, a true gift to be shared. Nana was my great paternal grandmother. She smiled but for a fleeting moment that evening in her little mud hut, and she changed the world. We are born into this world with no life manual, but we come ready to advance ourselves physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Our life experiences and challenges help us to grow in these respects, but we have the complicating ingredient of free will, which allows us to choose the course of our lives at any given moment. Occasionally, we choose the shortest and straightest route, but mostly we take the scenic route with its meandering twists and turns, because it's far more interesting and far more exciting. Little wonder most of us are loaded with issues and baggage. Now, understanding and finding the meaning and true essence of life is much like uncovering an onion layer by layer to get to the core of the essence. It is much like removing the darkness around our core essence, our divinity, our light. In physics, when you take a light source and place a prism in its path, the light deflects and expresses the colors of the rainbow. Now, each color of the rainbow is a unique expression of the source. The light and carries within it all the attributes of the source. Being human is to be egoistic. Being human is to see the separation in all of life, in all creation, to see the separation between the kaleidoscope of expressions and the source of the rainbow. And it is the illusion of separation that creates the opportunities for growth through our life experiences. Ironically, it is our humanity that holds the key to the realization of our divinity. As mortal beings, we cannot underestimate the importance of a balance between our physical and spiritual lives. A tip of the scale in the physical direction leads to anguish and chaos. And our world today is seriously tipped towards the material and physical. The resulting harsh lessons are too rampant to acknowledge, but the opportunities for growth are tremendous. A tip towards the spiritual, on the other hand, beyond the physical is actually quite impossible because we are physical beings. We're human beings. Our physical nature limits our experiences to the physical realms, and the most we can aspire to is to have a balance between the two where neither dominates and excessive movement in one direction is counteracted by an equal and opposite pull in the opposite direction. And we can achieve this balance by uncovering the spark of divinity within us and expressing it to the fullest. And I believe we can initiate this uncovering process by introspection, self-reflection, prayer, meditation, silence, contemplation, mindfulness, reconnecting with a divine source, and with God, or whatever term you prefer. Now, getting back to Nana's story. What Nana did, she performed a kind deed, something that she did every day and which came quite natural. It was quite natural for her. And as the story goes, this traveling merchant and his wife had tried for years to have a child, but each successful attempt at pregnancy ended up in a miscarriage or a stillbirth. Because Nana was the herbs and medicine woman of her village, she had experience with herbs, medicines, and the conditions to help them. So what she did, she took this lady in, she mothered her and nurtured her, and was successful in helping her go from parenthood to motherhood. And as was and still is common in many cultures around the world, women who do not bear children usually suffer from a huge negative social stigma to the point of being suicidal. So this was a big deal. It was a huge deal, and this family couldn't thank her enough. After showering her with every imaginable gift from his travels as a merchant, the merchant offered a final gesture of appreciation, and this was to formally educate one of Nana's male children. And the chosen child was Kofi, and the seed of formal education was planted. So this singular act of kindness by Nana changed the course of history for her family, her village, and continues to ripple effects not only in Ghana, West Africa, formerly the Gold Coast, but on several continents, even to this day, almost a century after her death. Now, Kofi had 10 children, and as a natural progression, he instilled in them the value of education, even though his children had to walk barefooted at least a mile each way to the nearby missionary school. One of those 10 children was Kwame. Kwame showed great promise in school, and after a series of childhood incidents, started to show remarkable abilities, especially in mathematics and the integration and application of church doctrine as taught by the local missionaries. And at age 17, Kwame ended up in St. Augustine's College along the southern coast of Ghana, some 300 miles away. And so Kwame was essentially the first to break away from his village in pursuit of more advanced education. Now, Kwame's insatiable appetite for wisdom fueled his quest for knowledge, and he continued to excel in his new environment. And he soon received a full government scholarship to the University of Bristol in England, where he studied and majored in philosophy, mathematics, and Latin. Upon his return to Ghana, Kwame was eventually elected a member of parliament, and after Ghana's independence from the British in 1957, Kwame went on to hold several high-profile positions in government, which took him to several countries around the world. Now, Kwame, in carrying the torch, really understood the power of education as had his father Kofi, and so to ensure that formal education remained alive in his remote village in the jungle, he built an elementary school, unmatched in those days, even to more sophisticated in comparison to schools in more sophisticated Ghanaian communities. And this school solidly stands today, some 50 years, or it's more like 70 years now, and is a quiet testament to the power of a kind deed, the power of education, the unquestionable power of a dream. Now, Kwame accomplished many feats in his lifetime. One of the most notable was when he stood up in Parliament at a time when there was a creeping culture of silence, where nobody dared speak up to the establishment, to the corruptive, dictatorial, and sacrilegious ways of the government, of which he was a part, of course. And he condemned the ways that he knew were treacherous for his young country, Ghana. By nature, Kwame rarely acted on impulse. His coolness under fire, his patience at the negotiating table, and his ability to understand his opponent's point of view had won him high marks as a debater. But on this day, April 25th, 1961, Kwame was not in Parliament to debate. He was there to charge and to challenge the establishment and to call a spade a spade. Mark Twain was of the opinion that physical courage was so common in the world, where moral courage was rare. Well, this singular act of moral courage came with a price tag, and Kwame found himself in prison without trial, just for speaking his truth. Now, despite acts of brainwashing and torture by the government whilst in prison, Kwame's faith in God and a higher being sustained him, and he did not only survive the 7-month ordeal, but managed to soften the hearts of a few of his fellow political detainees as well as prison guards. He pioneered the formation of a prison's musical choir consisting of both political and criminal prisoners, and managed to uplift the souls of many, some of whom did not make it out alive. After his miraculous release from political detention, Kwame retreated to his village, Jaman, with his young bride, Abba, and 3 small children at the time, and took a short hiatus from the public eye for a while. And as history recorded it, when he arrived with his family at his village, his father, Kofi, his family, along with chiefs and elders in all the surrounding villages and towns, and throngs of thousands of villages, had assembled with African drumming and dancing to welcome their prince home, He was their hero, and he got a palatial welcome befitting an African king. Now, in the village, Abba, Kwame's wife, conceived right away. Even though the village life afforded no city luxuries or food and things that she was accustomed to, Abba nourished herself and her baby with natural fruits and vegetables. And 9 months later, on the same day the famous Japanese Toru Terasawa ran the world marathon in record time, and only 26 days after France and West Germany signed a treaty of cooperation ending 400 years of conflict in a rat-infested hospital in this remote village in the heart of the Ghanaian jungle, I was born to Kwame and Abba Kwedu. Mom tells me I was such a tiny baby at birth. The rats and mice in the hospital were bigger than I was, and she would stay up all night to protect me, her new baby, from rodent attacks. So here I am, some 60 years later, the proud great-granddaughter of Nana, halfway around the world, carrying this torch, handed to me by my dad and my mom, sharing a simple story of hope, of inspiration and victory that started over a century and a half ago with a smile, an exquisite smile, a simple act of kindness and goodness that radiated from within, a trait that is inherent in every human being on the planet, a trait that is the seed for greatness and blissful happiness, but which usually lies buried and obscured within the maze of 21st century high-tech living. Marianne Williamson said it most succinctly, and I quote, "Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. Because we were born to make manifest the glory of God within us. And it is not just in some, it is in everyone. And in the depths of our misery, discontent, unease, our very human condition, lies this genius, this inner glow and radiance, which when discovered, cultivated, and nurtured with absolute faith, will unfold the magnificent, exquisite, divine power, the highest manifestation and essence of who we are as human beings. For within our karma lies our dharma. Embrace our circumstances we must, no matter what. We must resolve to uncover the exquisite smile from within the depths of our being, the elusive and dormant seed of knowledge, of wisdom, of grace, and of light, our divine birthright and true greatness, and nourish it relentlessly till fruition. Let us cultivate our exquisite smiles from the inside out. Let us radiate it out constantly, unblocked, unchallenged. Let us partake in the magic that is inevitable when people unite around a common purpose in the spirit of love and sharing. This is AC Kwedu, signing off from the Smile Code podcast. I hope you enjoyed this trip into my past and my family history. I'm honored to share my story with you, and I hope that you glean, even if it's a little bit of inspiration from it, that it helps you with your own story, your own self-reflection, and helps you to uncover your authentic, brilliant self and express it out into the world as you step into your greatness. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.